Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another edition of this thing that we call Full Course Yellow. A bit of a Thursday night to get together of myself and a few friends, just talking about all things motorsport and whatever else enters our evil minds over the next hour or so. If you'd like to join us, by all means do so. If you're on the In Pit Lane Facebook page, you can add some comments down below, and we will acknowledge them here. If you've got any questions at all, we would really love to get some questions. If you'd like to sort of drive the conversation, if you can drive the conversation, that's much better than us driving the conversation, let's face it. So if you'd like to do that, we would really appreciate it. Also, you can go to the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. Quality's a bit better in terms of video and a bit more stable on YouTube, and there's a chat feature there which will let you do the same thing as well. So if you're watching on Facebook now and you want to at some stage pop on over and to get a better quality video stream, for what it's worth, you can do that right now at the In Pit Lane YouTube channel, and you can also make make our day by sending us in some questions. Okay, so joining us once again, we've got sort of a fullish panel once again, and to turn on some mics so that people can. So we can hear all these people. There we go. We've got people watching. Priesty's watching. G'day, Shane. How are you? Should pop in one night and see us. And also Russell's with us once again. So g'day, Russell. How are you? Okay. Well, I suppose the thing let's talk first of all. The big news of the week was locally the news about Jamie Whincup. His decision to retire at the end of this year and move into the management of Triple Eight, Roland Dane sort of stepping aside and moving into another area, and the day-to-day running of Triple Eight's organisation in Australia will be done by Jamie. Also, in that press release was the news that Tony Quinn, the man behind the Australian GT Championship, the man behind Hampton Downs in New Zealand and the Highlands Motorsport Park, well-known competitor. In fact, he's competing this weekend in the local Targa up I think around Mount Buller or something, or Mount Borbor, I think it is. But he's competing this week, but he's taken a substantial share in Triple Eight as well. But well, interesting news. Pete, what about Jamie? Does this surprise you? And how do you think he'll go as the big boss of the team?
It'll be interesting. I wonder if you'll listen to. I mean, yes, he's the big boss, but I wonder if you'll listen to other points of view. And I wonder if there's ever an occasion at Bathurst where somebody's been told to conserve fuel and they don't, how he'll react.
Yes, that could be interesting, couldn't it? I mean, I've seen a few comments about sort of like he'll be the chief executive in charge of fuel economy and
cheap shot in straight away, eh, Pete? Just fire it off on all barrels. Let him roll.
Oh yeah, so you got to get in. You got to get in the kicks while they're down, while they're there.
Oh, anyone else is watching right now, just post them up, and Brett will put them on the lower third. Go for it. So I'm sure there's one, there's many.
The funny thing about, I was thinking about this when I read the article on the ABC website, the ABC Sport website, and the thing about Jamie Whincup, it's really funny. I mean, when you look at it, I mean, he's incredibly successful, 7 championships, 1 Bathurst. He's just been absolutely superb as a driver, and yet for some reason, I don't know. Do you think he doesn't seem to me to ever be put in the same sort of league as a Bob Jane, Alan Moffat, Norm Beachy, Peter Brock, Dick Johnson, one of those, even though they didn't win as many championships as he did, he seems to be, it seems to have almost flown under the radar. I mean, what is it about it that he just hasn't sort of, people don't talk about him in the same exalted way that they speak about all these other champions?
I think it's diversification. The ones you're talking about there, those legends or the stalwarts of the industry and from motorsport, maybe back in their day diversified their categories, their types of drivers, who they drive for, right across the board. Don't get me wrong, Jamie did some good groundwork here in Australia and probably touched on different things and was in open wheelers back in his day. But you've got Craig Lowndes, for example. as you said, he went across to America, and at least he did some Indy Light stuff. You've got, there was a lot of those drivers that you mentioned before, not just drove in one singular car or category or one sort of they specialised in one particular thing, where I think Jamie sort of maybe took stock earlier on in his life and said, no, I'm just going to completely dedicate myself to supercars, and I have no aspirations. He might have done the odd GT car or something along the lines, but he's never really opened himself up. And don't get me wrong, he's still been excellent at what he's done and has achieved a lot. And like we were talking about last week, John Bow's record, and now John Bow, and they're one of three drivers that have only ever won 100 races in a particular motoring sport event in Australia.
Yeah, the thing is, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that Jamie got involved. I mean, from we first had Jamie on the show. In fact, I don't know whether it's a funny story or not, but it is a story. We had Jamie on in his Formula Ford days, and just as he was about to jump in with Gary Rogers Motorsport, I think if it was just after, and he had come straight from around at Malala and he'd obviously been home, but came into the studio on the Tuesday night. While he was in the RMIT studios, I got a phone call the next morning, and it's Jamie, and he's saying, my car was broken while I was doing your damn show. My car was broken into, and someone stole my race suit and my helmet. And he wasn't happy about it, and yeah, he was almost, almost blaming us for it. It's like, so he wasn't particularly thrilled about coming in, but he always reminded me very much of Mark Scaife. This was always a job. It was a job he enjoyed, he loved doing, but it was a business. He was going to be ultra professional at it, and he was focused, and he wanted to know all the details, all the intricacies of how it worked, not just the mechanical side of it, not just the engineering side of it, but every little nook and cranny in running the race team and the administration and management and all the rest of it. So I think he'll make a very good.
His attention to detail.
Roland will be looking over his shoulder, and the question is, of course, we don't know. Do we have any idea of? I haven't even heard any rumours. If anybody out there has got any idea, who replaces him? Who should replace him? If you've got any ideas as who should replace him, let us know.
Brock Feeney would be probably the positional favourite at this stage if he has a good year.
That's an interesting. Whether they go for somebody like young and inexperienced like Brock, but he's certainly showing his credentials. Hadn't thought of him.
I saw a interview for Roland and his thoughts on the issue the last couple of days since the news broke, and I can't remember the media outlet that was able to get hold of Roland. He was very downplayed it and said, look, we've still got 12 months, I'm still in charge, I'm 100% committed, so is Jamie for the year, we're not going to take our foot off the wow pedal. However, he did mention the young up-and-coming talent, and there's only been 3 drivers since 2006, which are the 2 that are current now, and plus, recently retired Lowndesy. So they're going to look at the same sort of projection, and that's the way Roland sort of hinted at. They had Craig Lowndes, who was well formed in his career and going along great guns and getting the results, and the team looked fantastic. They brought in a young Jamie, which they're going to do exactly the same, because SVG, Shane's not as young as he used to be. He's got a lot of experience. He's at the top of his game as well, though, too. Has a great, well-rounded career in life outside the category supercars anyway. They'll bring in someone like a Jamie was at that stage under Lowndesy and be able to feed off each other from the top end and bottom end like that. If they were to bring in an experienced driver, they're going to be looking for 2 new drivers within a couple of years or the short term.
I think the interesting thing is that with the way that they'll be looking at it is sort of, obviously, Shane is going to be stepping up, and I mean, he's, in terms of his current form and his current success, he's probably the lead driver now, but they do have to play their game very carefully. having the fact that Shane is in there and that he will be expected to be sort of very much the number one driver. Do they want another? It's a bit like the sort of Lewis Hamilton scenario or Max Verstappen scenario. Do they want another number one driver? Do they want somebody, especially like Roland has said in one of the quotes that that it's an international search and that they're looking at names from all over the world. Well, I think that would be really stupid to bring in somebody from overseas to do it, because these cars are just so foreign to anything that they're sort of running over there. But if you got a really big name, an absolute superstar name who came across, would Shane sort of get his nose out of joint a bit and say, hang on, guys, I can do this. Bring in a kid somewhere like a Brock Feeney or a Kostecki or somebody like that who they can sort of bring through it along there. Steve is saying Brock's not ready yet. Sponsors will want a name driver. They'll have a name driver in Shane. The only thing that might, in the eyes of some sponsors, go against Shane is he doesn't like doing media. As we've sort of said, as I've said here, I think here before, and I've said in a lot of places, it's not that he's not good at it. It's not that he's like her there. It's just something he would, he just wants to race. It's something that he would prefer not to do. But when he does it fine. But it's not his main thing. He just wants to get out there and drive fast and drive as many things as possible. And
you might have seen the same stuff as what I did, Brett. And to quote, Roland said his phone was ringing hot for hours after the announcement. And he's sort of thrown it out there almost word for word. One of the comments that was made to him in the phone call, my contract means nothing.
Yes.
So
we knew that already, didn't it? Formula One and everything.
They're like groupies just throwing themselves, rolling. You're my Valentine. It's February 14th. You just tell me what you want.
Well, I was saying before you joined us and before everybody watching at home joined us, I was talking with Chris and Peter about the Facebook message from Todd saying that it's been a pleasure competing against you. What a great guy you've been, and all of it. And it was like sort of reading between the lines. It was, by the way, when you're looking for to get an experienced driver to replace you, I'm here.
Yep. A couple of them have signed on the dotted line and may have actually thought to themselves at some stage this year, just say things don't go well in the heat of the situation, the flames are under the bonnet a bit, going, geez, if I hadn't signed for a 2-year deal, I never know, I could have gone to Red Bull next year.
Yeah, but as I said, we saw that just recently with Dave. Davey with his 10-year contract, and he's out at the end of one. So, yeah, the contracts aren't where if you want out. And that's the problem. There's no point in forcing a contract on people who don't want to drive for you. If you get there and they
contract.
What's that?
Or a legacy contract. That was silly because it's guaranteed you're going to change things.
Well, that's how Red Bull got hold of SVG. He had a year to go on his contract with Stone Brothers, and that all went pear-shaped. And
that was with Betty too.
Oh, sorry, Betty. He pulled the stunt card and said, I don't want to race anymore. I'm going back to New Zealand. This is not for me anymore. All he was doing was just really getting out of his driving obligations so he could start afresh again.
Well, it depends on what you look at. Certainly, I'm not, I don't think I'm breaking any confidences by saying that certainly off the record, when I spoke to him, not long after that, his intention was to go back to New Zealand and stay, because he was pretty homesick, and he didn't like all the hype, and he didn't like all the media, and he just wanted to get back to his family and just get out there and start having fun again. But he sort of got out and he started having fun again over there, and he saw. And there were people who put up their hands and said, look, we're not going to put any undue pressure on you. Just come over here, and all we want you to do is drive, mate. And he went, I sort of got the sort of thought, this supercar lurk, not as bad as I thought it was actually. I might have been a bit hasty in that decision.
While we're on the Red Bull track, though, see they've joined forces with Orica for World Endurance Championship in 2024. They've signed an agreement.
Yeah, that's the hydrogen in 2024. They're going to run the hydrogen cars. I'm a bit sort of bit disappointed with that because I was hoping that the hydrogen thing would be a far more open sort of opportunity to say to anybody out there. Here's a very simple set of regulations. Here's, in terms of dimensions, in terms of car safety. But apart from that, the sky's the limit. If you can, you create the engine, you create and as long as it's safe, as long as you can prove it's safe, you can run anything you damn well please. And
Needs to be open slather, doesn't it?
Yeah, sort of encourage some innovation, but this is not. I mean, yes, there'll be innovation, but it will be all coming from one direction. I mean, it'll be a control chassis and a control power plant and a control fuel cell unit. But the good news is, I mean, from the Le Mans point of view, in 2024, is that that Red Bull will be there in one form or another. So Red Bull will be there, and we now know that we've got Porsche back, we've got Audi back, Toyota will still be around. I would imagine that Acura, or Honda, and I'm using the Acura brand in America, they've committed to IMSA and the North American Sports Car Championship in a car that they will be able to race at Le Mans. So I'd be really surprised if they built a car and said, no, we're not going to bother. We're not going to bother racing it at Le Mans. I'd find that very hard to believe. So I imagine they will be. Reading between the lines, Mazda look like coming on board as well. I mean, they did. They were in with a really good chance at the Daytona on the weekend, which was won by Acura. But the head of Mazda was saying to John Hindhaugh on Midweek Motorsport this week on their podcast that they're looking at all sorts of options, and they're not really looking towards GT because they don't have a dog in that fight. They've got no car that's suitable unless there's if something comes out of total left field and they rebuild the RX-7 and relaunch or the RX-8 or RX-9 or whatever they want to call it. At the moment, they don't have anything in GT racing, but they want to be involved.
Like you just said, they want to be involved, and it's the old pun in 10 years, the old cliche: pile them high, watch them fly. So if you get 2 or 3 big names in it, and 4, 5, 6, you are, as you just said, your cliche. They need a dog in that fight, and everyone wants to be a part of it because when they've got all those other high-end manufacturers that have been, so much history as well too in the WEC, they all want to compete against each other and they all want the accolades. Because guess what? We won and we beat 6 or 7 other ones. We are the world's best.
Yeah, and of course they've got the 100th anniversary of Le Mans is coming up. Fairly soon. I think in 2023. So
they want to be a part of it.
And then the next year will be the hydrogen as well. And there are also rumours that because of the hydrogen involvement that you may get both BMW and Hyundai because they've been fiddling around. They're quite keen on hydrogen technology, and they might see that as a way of sort of getting involved. And certainly the rumours, particularly in America, there's been really strong rumours regarding Hyundai wanting to get involved at some stage, but it just had to make financial sense and it had to make marketing sense from the point of view is, this is not just a big noisy racing car that's going to go very fast and carry our name on the side. This has to be a showcase for the new technology that we're going to be using in the future, and the technology that everybody's going to be using into the future will not be the internal combustion engine. That, in terms of the day-to-day road car, the internal combustion engine is all but dead.
Chris is still going in the background by the look of it, though.
Yeah,
if you get that started, you'd be doing well.
Yeah, that's what is that, Chris?
W92, very early Daimler Benz, I think.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether that's the one that was the same model that they had up at Como Gardens. Perhaps somebody who might know on there because George, who had Como Gardens, had a huge collection, including a number of old Mercedes, including one of the very first Mercedes, that looked very much like that.
Oh, he's fired it up. Here we go.
No.
Did you have it running then, Chris? No.
No.
He started up and took Melissa for a drive in it around Como Gardens. there because she was so taken with it. And he said, "Would you like to go for a ride?" And it was like, "Oh yeah." So I do have some footage somewhere, so floating around of
Yeah, you'll have to get that out.
Okay.
going around Como Gardens in the old Mercedes, as well as on the train. He had a train running around that like a little train that you could ride on. And all of his stuff, his Bugatti, and just a huge collection of wonderful cars. And Como Gardens was up for sale just recently. I didn't hear if anybody who bought it, if anybody, but
Did see
I'm not
that
sure
too.
what's happened to his. Not sure what happened to his collection, but the gardens up there, the whole property was beautiful, and the cars were amazing, and he was just a lovely guy, and just sort of brought us in. In fact, we finished the thing, and it's like, "Oh, you're staying for lunch, aren't you?" And it's like, yeah,
Twist
okay.
my arm? Absolutely.
Yeah, so we headed down and got some barbecue supplies from the local butcher and threw them on, and we sat there and we had some sausages and some hamburgers and some nice wine. Charles Rogers from the VHRR was out there with us. He sort of organised it, and we had a fabulous day. It was one that we will remember for a long
It's
time.
a source of admiration when you're driving down Toorak Road or Chapel Street. When I was working down there for a long period of time, I always looked across and like,
No, this is not. This is Como Gardens. This was up in the other side of Belgrave.
Oh, okay. There's the gardens down there as well too.
Yeah, so this is not like Como House. This is this was up there, and it's this just this magnificent garden, and he had all sorts of things. He had a little village, had a little sort of for the kids to go in and have a look at there. So there were goblins and elves and all sorts of things, little houses in the fabulous stuff. Really, really great. In fact, it is on the Pit Lane YouTube channel. If you search for Como Gardens, you will find two clips. You will find some stuff from George. With that, and also he got in there and he said, "Do you want me to start up the Bugatti?" And we said, "Oh yeah." So he hops into this beautiful.
No, never start the Bugatti. No, not at all.
Hops into this beautiful old Bugatti, starts the thing up, like warms it up, primes it up, gets the rest, starts the thing up, and then revs the living daylights out of it. It sounded magic. I'm terrified. This this classic car, and he is just it's in the garage, and he is revving the living daylights out of this thing, and just it sounded wonderful. But I'm thinking, oh, for God, what are you? But I said to him afterwards, and he said, "Well, it's all right. It's got to be used because they're a race car. You don't feather them. And he was a regular."
Probably still running it in.
Yeah, so now there's an interesting one. Ben Rothberg saying thoughts Cam Waters heading to 888 has contacts through Rollins and UK connections. That's interesting. He does have that. He's certainly he's certainly a talented driver, and he would make a good. That would be a very strong lineup. Cam Waters and Gears. That'd be a really interesting dynamic there. I think they're a couple of guys who get on pretty well too, because they're very much the same. I mean, you've got Cam at the moment running sprint cars and other things. He loves to get his hands dirty, literally. Very much part of a motorsport family. Of course, his brother racing in super bikes, and they've both run in off-road bikes and.
Yeah, so Cameron can pick up the slack on the media opportunities and obligations.
Yeah, Cam's very
does that.
Yeah,
he was on
media friendly.
He was on mainstream media this week, taking I think it was Jordan DeGoey from Collingwood, your boy Brett, for hot laps around Phillip Island during the middle of this week. So he was, and you know what? They didn't even mention Cam's name. It was all about Collingwood. Funny about that at the moment. It's all about Collingwood.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the same thing. Like it happens every. It's because there's no Grand Prix this year. They don't have that sort of like that tie-in that they can get a motor racing AFL tie-in, because that was the only thing. And I remember, and this is once again, I was well off the record, but I remember at one stage we were down at the launch at Albert Park, interviewed a few people, and all the media were out there, and they were talking to Mark Webber, and asking him about sort of his favourite AFL club and who did he barrack for, and he was like, I'm a bit interested in the. And Mark said, of course, Mark said straight afterwards he came there and he went, I'm a rugby boy. I've got no interest in this in AFL football. He said every year I'm going to come in and go, oh yes, I really like the Murrumbina Mudlarks. Yeah, I love them. They're a great team. Yeah, terrific with their star, whatever tappy bloke, the big tall tappy bloke who kicks the yeah. I've got to every year you've got to come up with. Every year you had to come up with that stuff, and all the internationals who would come out here, the first thing they'll be like, have you seen Australian rules football? No, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Oh, it's the greatest game in the world.
That's because when they did a promo video about 10, 15 years ago at AFL football, and I think we've spoken about this before, maybe a while ago, Brett, they just took a whole lot of highlights of AFL footballers because they've got no protection, and they've put their body on the line. So they just put some clashes and some good tackles and just smashing the bejesus out of each other. And they put it on the highlight reel. They put it up against a soccer game, or they put it up against a gridiron or NFL or it's all the other world stuff like that. So they put something sort of clash AFL, a grab of that, and they put another sport. Then they go back to the AFL and they just put it up against it. And it just showed how physically and how much Aussie rules the players put their body on the line. And all these people outside Australia that don't know Aussie rules, they see it for the first time, they go, what? Are they still alive? Have they not killed themselves in battle lately? So it does get a lot of attention internationally.
There are some good YouTube reaction videos, sort of, like American, and there was the one I saw just recently with this American guy, and he knows nothing about it. He goes, well, I've been asked to have a look at that, and he just sits there the whole time going, oh no, the dude's dead, man. Oh no, he's dead. Oh my, oh they can't. Oh my, he's dead.
Yeah, that's because they go, there's no body armor, there's no protection. What are they doing? They're stupid.
But that's funny. I mean, it's the funny thing. I mean, if you talk to the AFL here, it's like, it's not a rough game, it's not a violent game, But then when they moved into the American market, it was like, this is the toughest game in the world, and these people are absolute warriors, and they're out there to kill each other, and in Australia, it's like, oh no, it's all about skill and finesse, and it's a beautiful.
Funny thing is,
game.
You're actually right, because having played it at senior level, does take a fair bit of skill. Trust me. There's better people than me out there that play it as well too. Obviously at AFL level, and you've got you can't have a meat axe as a head totally. You've actually and your talent. You have to think about what you're doing. So it's just like any sport. You have to apply yourself and hone your skills.
That's probably why I was so incredibly bad at it. I mean, they all
you and me both, Brett.
They looked at me at the time because, believe it or not, I was a bit of an athlete in the day, and I was a fan. And they just assumed that I'd be a really, and also because I got a family history, like in with football with my uncle, with the Collier brothers at Collingwood, Harry and Lita Collier being my uncles. They just assumed that he's a natural, and no, I was not a natural. It was like someone said, you've got all the tools, you just have absolutely no idea how to use them.
Speaking of sport, and slightly off the cuff, and only because I've been involved with it, but the Victorian Jet Ski Boating Association is having their first meeting in years. I think it might be late March, and they're going to have it at Lake Kangaroo up in the north of Victoria, and it's going to be a full proper round. Every single business that's ever been involved with jet skiing in Victoria and even Australia are sponsoring the event. It's going to have 6 or 7 classes. They're going to be out there on Lake Kangaroo, and they've asked old veterans to go along and participate if we can find something that kills arthritis in an instant, maybe in a tablet, I don't know, maybe a vaccine. They seem to be able to develop this COVID stuff pretty quickly. But I might get up there for it, or I might do a little bit of coverage of it because it is motorsport. It is out in the water, and you do go 100k across the water, and you can kill yourself doing it as well too. Trust me, I've almost been there.
And how are your knees? I mean, when was your last knee reconstruction?
I think that was the night when you shut the laptop down about 2 years ago, 18 months ago, and says, "Doc's not here. I'm not going to play with this stupid thing," and just slammed it down and said, "Anyway, good luck to Doc. He's in hospital, not getting operated on." So you're right. Yes, it wasn't that long ago. And the other one was the broken leg one. So yeah, I don't know which is the good or the bad knee anymore.
Yes, there we got MTLS is saying Aussie rules is for the uneducated. Bring back the biff. I'm assuming he's meeting. He may mean something about
NRL,
about rugby league. Yes, I've been to a few rugby league matches. There's about 6 hours of my life I'm never getting back. My God. What?
Come on, you're at the home. You were down in Melbourne. Yeah, I know.
Pick up the ball, crash, fall down. Pick up the ball, crash, fall down. Sorry,
you forgot to throw the ball again.
It's marginally more entertaining than soccer, which is also another total waste of space.
Hey, there was a game during the week that was 9-love. Not saying it's high scoring, but for them, it made the news. So that's an absolute shellacking in soccer apparently. 9-love.
God, yeah, yes. I mean, yeah, that's
exactly. I'm being facetious.
Huge.
The other one was too. I mean, they had a lead-up tournament that got cancelled in Melbourne for the tennis this week. Sorry we're getting slightly off the cuff tonight, but I saw a hilarious interview, and Quarters, if you know a guy named Quartermain, who's on a commercial TV show. Exactly, I know, yeah. Quarters, yes. He's always been
the man who took on Jean-Claude Van Damme in a Toorak nightclub.
Sorry, that's just laughable in itself. So it's just just a lead up to what you just said.
It happened.
You'll have to tell about the result after this. So they have their play of the day on their news, and I happened to get home in time to watch the grab at the end of it. And he just summed it up in one instance by saying, "There are dumb questions you can ask as a reporter in the media." They asked a player who's in one of the international teams competing in the Nations Cup style tournament, and she asked him, "Oh, so you're playing Italy tomorrow or something?" And the poor guy goes, "Huh?" And he said, "No, you know such and such," and she thought you could hear her in the background because you don't hear her voice that clearly. And he's gone. His English wasn't too bad. He's gone. No. And she's going, yeah, blah, 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 no. And he said, "No, we play Greece tomorrow." Oh, she's gone. Oh, yeah, no. He goes, "No, I don't know what you're talking about. We play Greece tomorrow." And so that was absolutely hilarious. The expressions on his face for someone who is a reasonable account of English said, "No." What he really wanted to say was, "You've got no fire trucking idea on what you're talking about, lady. Try something else in life."
Well, that happens every year, like at the Grand Prix. I mean, that was how sort of and I've said this story how I ended up sort of in the Toyota F1 pit that year, because we went out and we did this Toyota thing. The local media turned up and basically asked lots and lots of football questions, because the deal was, because Toyota were also sponsoring the AFL, and they brought along, because he was still playing in these days, James Hird from Essendon. And they were just totally focused on James Hird. It was just, James Hird, what do you think of the Grand Prix? What do you think? And, Timo, what do you think of, I don't know anything about it. And they just kept asking. And I just sit back and it's like, they're getting paid. They're the professionals. They're getting paid. They've got deadlines for tonight. I'll just pick up, the crumbs. But they were asking just so many, stupid questions. And you could tell that Timo had no idea what they were. And I said from the side, I just said, "Timo, if I could move back to motor racing at the moment." And he just turned around, he just turned his back on there, and he just turned around and looked at me and went, "Oh, thank so much. And I asked him a whole bunch of questions about it. It was at the time when they went from slicks to, remember, they had the groove tyres. And I was talking, oh no, but they were coming off the groove tyres and going back onto slicks. And because he'd come out of Formula or GP2, they'd been running on slicks. And I sort of said, do you think this will give you any advantage in Formula One, the fact you've just come out of a few years of running with slicks when they've been running the groove tyres? And he sort of said, oh, I don't think it'll make that much difference, and all the rest of it. At the end of it, one of the sports journos from one of the major networks who shall remain nameless came up to me and said, oh, thank God you were here. I know nothing about car racing. And I couldn't care less.
You get so many people in the walks of life. Now, Rob Mills and Paris Hilton survived bumping uglies years ago. How did Quarters and Jean-Claude Van Damme turn out?
Oh no, I think basically he put his hand, because apparently the story was that Van Damme was in Melbourne doing a promotional visit for, I think, the movie Street Fighter, and he was at a nightclub, and apparently he took a bit of a liking to Mrs. Quartermain.
Oh.
Yeah, and basically Stephen went in there and said, I don't care if you are the muscles from Brussels. You go anywhere near my wife, I'll knock your expletive deleted head off. And apparently he went, sorry, and he said something along the lines of, hey, I do this stuff on movies. I'm just, I'm not, I'm out of here. Just
it's
I'm
the
fine.
charm.
Yeah. So he was
the charm.
He was out, so he backed down. He went down straight away. Ben's all saying, speaking of true, like, could Garth Tander get a farewell tour, which Gary Roberts? I would doubt it very much. I think Garth is sort of in a position.
He loves running his teams up too much now.
Well, I think he's got family commitments. He's got other motorsport commitments. I think that just getting back in and being a professional.
He did pull on the race suit for the promo for the Total Red Bull car livery start of the week promotion. However, for the sort of the vibe you get from GT when I was up there at Bathurst, what was it? Feels like 20 years ago. Thanks, Christian, for posting the Bathurst 12-hour memories earlier this week. It's a good friend of Brett's and a flag marshal in the world extraordinaire. Hello out there to Christian. The vibe, the feeling you got from GT was he just likes his GT racing, just likes his Bathurst, his 12-hour endurance stuff in his top high-end European cars, and it's just guest appearances, because I think he's doing the sort of like the liaison, like running his own stuff, running the teams like that. I mean, he's approachable. He's a great guy, and I think he just enjoys still keeping his hand in the sport and running things a lot more and seeing the success of others now.
Yeah, MTL is saying if Simona Silvestro was too slow for Triple A. Well, of course, Simona is going to be running IndyCar this year, and she's going to be running at the Indianapolis 500. So she's a Porsche. Everyone keeps forgetting now. She's fallen on her feet. She went back to Europe, and she's now a Porsche factory driver.
Yep.
Sort of doing test driving, and being a brand ambassador, really. But the fact that she's going back to IndyCar, and people forget that she was competitive. She was very competitive in IndyCar, and she's going to be there. So I don't think we'll see Simona back in a hurry. I saw someone did an interview with her recently and asked about whether she would like to find a way of getting back to Australia, and it was one of those sort of, well, of course I love Australia, but
I think you're going to see more likelihood of Alex Premer coming across when internationals can come back across, and he may be doing a co-drive. There's more chance of that.
As much as I really like Alec, I think that it's I think he's sort of in that limit of in terms of the age and all the rest of it, and he's once again making a good career for himself in America, doing driver training and helping people in their GT co-driving with very rich businessmen in their GT America and IMSA sort of thing. As Ben saying, between Waters, Chaz, and Percat, Chaz seems to be quite happy where he is. But the point is whether it's what happens to Walkinshaw in the future. I mean, because they've got no General Motors backing, and they're still running like HSV. But what they were going to do Camaros, but yeah, I don't know. It's going to be there. Percat would be an interesting one. I don't know. I don't know whether Nick would.
It's like a
He
game
might.
of
He
chess.
might. He might be good. He'd be a reliable. He'd certainly be a reliable pick.
Like a game of chess and
I
Monopoly.
like.
It's
I
still
like. Yeah, I like Waters though. I think that connection with Waters is a good one, and I
Could all
really do
change.
like that pairing.
It could all change by the end of the halfway through the year again. Anyway, there'll be favourites, and other ones will commit to other drives and sign on the dotted line elsewhere, and they'll not saying they use it. The other one was too quickly while we were talking about IndyCar. Scott McLaughlin's did some more running around in his Penske units as well too. Just I think I saw the lap times, but just behind his fellow team members.
Yeah, he wasn't far behind. I mean, for so he's got involved. They've got started testing over there. He's got the new livery, the PPG livery in the car. Yeah, that'll be really interesting to see how he does. But he's clearly he's close enough on his first times out, considering that he really hasn't driven much in the way of open wheelers, from the beginning. I mean, he came out to Australia. He basically ran a few Formula Ford races, and somewhere, as I think I said a couple of weeks ago, we have that footage. We have the footage of him in those Formula Ford races because he ran at the. He ran a couple of rounds of the State Series, the Victorian State Series, and did okay. But it was really, I think that it was just for him to get that licence so he could move up, and he jumped in fairly early because everyone says he's a great driver. He came, really worked his way up, but the family are not without resources, and he jumped a few hurdles pretty early to get where
Just going back to that last comment about Nick Percat, I think he's probably more of a prospect than Chaz. Chaz is pretty happy, as you said, at Walkinshaw. Got a multi-year deal on it, and he's probably, as you would imagine, the number one driver there. Nick, just as well, it's not a drive opening up for Gary Rogers Motorsport because Nick Percat wouldn't be getting anywhere first in the place because he'd have to start liking S5000 cars, and he's not a great ambassador for S5000 open wheelers at the moment.
I think it was more the TCR that he was. That he was not a. Yeah, that he's not a great fan, and I don't think he had any trouble with S5000. I think most of them would probably jump in. I think if you could say, sort of off the record and away from the bright lights, would you like to step in and do a few laps? When I think there'd be a lot of them who'd go, oh yeah, I'd like to at least give it a go.
Lee said when he jumped in, it's like driving a matchbox again. But once you get the hang of it, like he said, it took him a bit. I mentioned last week. He's thoroughly likes wringing the neck out of it now. So without chasing the chook around the yard too much.
In terms of Triple Eight again, Russell saying depends on how much money they can bring to the table. I don't think that's one of the problems.
No.
Triple Eight have got. I mean, with Red Bull on board and with Ampol and a few of those sponsors, I think they're one of the better resourced, better sponsored teams. I mean, obviously, if somebody brings enough money, then that might sway the. But I don't think that'll be. I mean, with Tony Quinn on board now, I imagine he'd be putting some dollars in. I don't really think money is something that they probably.
That's why I wrote my reference tonight. Dinky Dye pet food lover. If you know where Dinky Dye comes from originally. Any questions? Any of you three know where Dinky Dye comes from?
Dinky Dye. What the expression?
No, the brand. Dinky Dye pet foods.
Dinky Dye. No, I don't.
Comes out of the Mad Max movies. That's what Mel Gibson was eating in the tin can from the spoon at the start of the movie.
Oh, right. Okay.
So yeah, that was the tin can he was eating dog food from for his sustenance.
Yeah, I think MGL is saying only one Scott going to be on the podium, and that's Scotty Dixon. Yeah, Scotty Dixon will be no doubt he'll be on the podium, but I don't think he'll be the only New Zealand Scot that's on the podium. I reckon, particularly in things like in street races and all the rest of it. Once he gets his elbows out and he gets sort of used to that, I think Scott's a real chance. Scott's, there's no doubt Scott's a talent. I mean, Penske's a ruthless businessman, and he would not, and a really good judge of talent. He wouldn't be spending all his time and money on Scotty just because just because he's a nice guy, and is good with the media. He wants him over there because he thinks long term he's going to be sort of a possible replacement for a Will Power or something like that as their career winds down.
Oh, Will's still hitting his marks at the moment. He's still hitting it. So he is climbing in the years like we all are, but he's still at the top of his game. He's not going anywhere fast. So yeah, good luck to Will this season over there as well too.
Yeah, g'day to Ripen GT. So never really like motorsport where the focus is on the drivers rather than the cars. Yeah, I'm with you on that. That's I don't go to support drivers. Who's your favourite driver? I've got lots of drivers that I've obviously in our situation we've met a lot of the guys, and I've got people I really like and are really good friends in many respects, but. My friend Melissa for many years, I mean, that's why she loved historic racing so much, because she got really just sick to death of all the egos and all the rest in mainstream motorsport, and she said the only thing I'm interested in going to is the historics because it's all about the cars. It's not egos, it's not huge prize money. It's not about this driver against that driver. It's all about the cars, and that's what she was interested in. And I think that's why historic racing is so popular. And of course, the Phillip Island historic meeting is coming up, but at this stage, as far as we know, there will be no spectators allowed there, which is a real shame. I'm not sure why. If they allow this tennis to go ahead next week, I really can't see why they can't. With 30,000 people, I really can't see why they can't get sort of even 4,000 or 5,000 into a place like Phillip Island where they're out in the open. And let's face it, the wind's blowing a gale. Any self-respecting virus in its right mind is not going to go anywhere near Phillip Island. Mr.
GT there with the caption "Never really liked motorsport." The focus is on really the cars. I had the pleasure of catching up with Jim Richards last night through a contact. I won't go into too much detail, but one of the questions that someone else asked him while we were catching up with him said, "Where do you think drivers with their cars don't appreciate enough to get the most time out of them?" He said, "Well, look, people, they work on this, they work on their cornering, they work on getting the maximum speed out of the car, etc." He said, "But the car that people don't appreciate the most part of it is braking. If you want to make up ground to someone else or gain ground on someone else on a racetrack, all comes down to getting your braking as best as possible, as perfect as possible, and then the rest will fall into place for you." So there's a bit of advice from a guy that's been quite successful in Trans-Tasman motorsport.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can certainly say that. I mean, it's all about going fast. I mean, the less time you can spend slowing down, and the more time you can spend accelerating, probably is going to be the secret to success. And that was one of the things that people said Brock was so good at, is that he was very smooth, he was very far. I think that's one of the things. Chuck saying that the golden era of the 70s, people seem to what was the focus on? Pete Allen and DJ. Yeah, it was. I mean, you had three very big personalities there as well. Certainly not for me, it wasn't. But yeah, I can see that was the. But it was probably more. It was probably it wasn't so much on Pete Allen and Dick. Or was it really Ford versus Holden? I mean, that was the thing that I think got obviously Brocky was the man for Holden, Moffat and Johnson were the men for Ford, and people followed them for that reason as well. So,
well, if they changed manufacturers, it was a huge deal. It was front page news, even on newspapers.
Oh yeah, I mean that's it for sure. I mean
we only had the print media back then. There was no such thing as a Skype or a Zoom or a YouTube, let alone a phone that you could carry around with you and talk to people on. So it was either watch the idiot box or read the paper. That was all you had each day.
Yeah, and that was the
So
sort
do you
of
think
things
it
like.
goes a bit beyond the Holden Ford fanboy type thing? Uh, there were other cars and other drivers out there who were doing quite well.
Yeah, well, there was certainly more variety back then. I mean, if you have a look at, even, like, there was sort of the post Brock era and the pre Brock era. I mean, if you go back before Brocky started really being, spectacularly successful and popular, you go back into the days of Moffat versus Gagan versus Jane versus Beachy.
Yeah.
You had Jim McEwen in his Porsche.
Kevin
Brian
Bowler.
Kevin was more
A little bit
in
later.
open wheelers
Yeah.
back in those days. I mean, it was later when he got into the into touring cars. So he was mostly a Formula 5000, and before that a Formula 2 sort of driver. But yeah, I mean, back in those days, and I think that's the era that I sort of got first interested in, when you had sort of all those cars. And I remember, like, it was this really big deal when the New Zealanders came out, including Jim Richards. You had people coming over who had Pontiac Firebirds and and more modern Camaros and things that we'd never seen, and you were just so excited to go out and see these amazing new cars that you'd never seen before. Whereas now you go out and it's like,
Well, how good was Bathurst, the James Hardy 1000, with all those, have three or four different categories. You'd have lap cars. It was just, it added to the spice of the race.
Quick lift trucks.
Sorry?
Quick lift trucks.
Quick lift trucks, yes. People
You used to have to dodge the quick lift trucks before the safety car.
Yeah, when you look back at that stuff, it's absolutely terrifying. You see the cars going past, some marshal out there sort of, unenthusiastically waving a yellow, or even a stationary yellow, and a white flag to say, oh, by the way, there's a slow car on the track. Yeah, it's a bloody great big truck, and if you run into the back of it, it's going to shear off the top of you and take your head off. But
and probably knock the bloody half a slab on the front seat off its bloody hinges, and then they can't drink the rest of it while the second half, the last couple of hours of the race, they won't be able to have their beers.
Yes, so yeah, I mean, you have a look at some of that footage and some of those shots. I mean, and you see the flag is on YouTube, and it used to pop up on the ABC occasionally. But you can go back and see some of the Tasman rounds with for Formula 5000 back in the day, and you see, like at Sandown, the flaggies are actually standing on the track, walking out onto the track and waving flags. And there's that beautiful shot in one of the Formula 5000s of John Davison's car breaking down on the main straight at Sandown, and he gets out on the main straight during the race and sits on the tyre on the main straight, watching the cars go by about that far away, having a smoke. It's like, I don't know where he got. He must have had it in his. It must have had it in his uniform or something, because he's just got out there and they take it there and they said, "There's John Davison's car still stranded on the main straight," and all these cars flying past him at 280 kilometres an hour, and Davo's sitting there going,
"Yeah." We've got a possible grass fire in section 2. Possible glass fire. No car present. Don't know where it's come from, but there's we have a fire in sector 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
But out anyway. Geez,
yeah, Chuck wants another comment from Chuck about Howard Marsden and John Shepherd, who brought professionalism to the sport with their pseudo factory team. Yeah, I mean, Howard Marsden, well, Al Turner sort of started it for Ford, and then Howard took over, and he really took it. And of course, Moffat was really very heavily involved in that, because he was the first one. People forget that, that he came in with the Coca-Cola sponsorship and all that. But then people will say, oh, well, he was the first. They forget that, like quite a few years earlier, that before the Shell sponsorship, there was the Neptune Team Trident cars. So you had Norm Beachy in the Nova, in the Chevy Nova, Jim McEwen in a Mark II Cortina, and Skinny Mountain in a Mini, and they were running. And that's where they had the idea. I think Bob Holden told us at Motor Classica a few years ago when we interviewed him how that sort of happened, because they were saying, oh, you can't run sort of sponsorship, you can't run logos or anything on your cars in those days. And he said to them, well, why don't you just paint the cars in the same colour scheme as the oil cans?
Just a quick kudos as well too. Howard also was instrumental at Nissan there for a long time in the racing program as well.
Oh yeah, and a lovely guy. Really, like he came in onto the show several times, and he's one of the few people like in the sport that when he did pass away, we went to the funeral. It was the memorial service because he had done so much, and he was always terrific. He brought in a whole bunch, and I've still actually got the images here. Because they wanted to reinvent Formula Ford to make it sort of more professional, more sort of contemporary, and he launched them on the show. He came in there with this CD or as they had, and he just handed it and said, "Here's all the artist impressions of what Formula Ford is going to look like in the future," and just gave us those. So gave us the exclusive on that. And was just always terrific. It's just, could you come in? Yes, of course, not a problem. And he was always happy to come in and happy to chat. And a sad loss. John Shepherd around is still around, and John was hoping. I just saw because he's a friend on Facebook. John was not restoring, but doing a replica of the Bob Jane Repco Tirana, which he was involved with building back in the day. But he was saying just recently that he might have to push that off to somebody else because he just really doesn't have the time and the resources to get it finished in time. But it would be fantastic because John Shepherd cars are fantastic. Like they've got an amazing reputation for just for quality in terms of the quality of their engineering. From the days of Bob Jane, going right through with the Holden racing team and right up through to the Volvos. He was. Very, very good engineer, and he's still got an interest in motorsport, obviously. But just doesn't have the resources or the time to finish off that project. But hopefully, you get a spurt of enthusiasm and energy again and finish the thing. Because I'd love to see it in its original state because it kept getting modified. By the time I first saw it, it had the Chev engine in it. It was heavily modified. But back in the day when it had the Repco engine in it, I mean, that would have been just an extraordinary thing to see and hear. Okay, so we've got MotoGP news. No, the Thai GP's gone. Goodbye, Thai MotoGP.
Yes,
That's gone.
I read something today that it was a misunderstanding and it's going to go ahead.
Oh, okay, I hadn't heard that. Yeah. Well, that'd be interesting. I mean,
the Japan Olympics is on again and off again. So I suppose why can't they do it for other things that are going on around the world?
The tennis, which is supposed to start next week, is on again and off again. I mean, we still don't know. They're saying, we're pretty certain it's going to be on. We're 90%, 80%.
Only
75%.
Oh, just pin the tail on the donkey. Where's the pinata? I need a stick. But the MotoGP stuff, it's unusually quiet at the moment. I'm seeing a lot of the usual drip feeding of the test riding and the riders pumping up their tyres metaphorically on the bike, saying how good it is, or we can work on this and this is how we're going to go, etc. But it's just unusually a little bit quiet in MotoGP for this time that's coming up, the season. But look, like as you said, Pete, it's on again, it's off again. It could be, it may be, might be. Wish it could. However, I reckon you're going to find a few things like that will happen on the high-end motorsport stuff or any sport throughout the whole course of the year because the things are evolving around the world with the stuff that we're living with now, the pandemic it's affecting different countries. Now you're hearing I think it was Japan's on their third wave. So that's why they're a little bit apprehensive about the Olympics being there. But they're saying, no, everything's fine over here. Everyone, come over, catch a flight. I mean,
it's going to be until they get herd immunity. And as my local doctor said to me the other, he said, this is going to take a long time to roll. Even if this vaccine works as well as everybody says it's going to, the fact is that it's not rolling out anywhere near fast enough, and there's still way, way too many people who won't take the thing. And as he said, if people won't take it, it's not going to do any good to society at all. They need to take it. And I remember, and I don't know whether Chris would remember this because we're of a similar vintage. I don't know whether you remember, Chris, the old the old TB, the tuberculosis.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I was 3 or 4 years old that once a year there would be a van would come round, or once every, I don't know what the schedule was, but there would be a huge truck would come into the country towns, into Wonthaggi and Rowland and all those sort of places,
Yep.
where they would test for TB, and they would also, and then we would go to school and we would all get the polio vaccine, the oral vaccine.
Yes.
Doc's health warming for the week is be careful with fluorescent light tubes, because if you smash one of those, you can still get TB from it. So there's some genuine proper advice from the doc this week. Be careful with your fluorescent light tubes. You can still get tuberculosis from it.
Well, I'm not sure.
Tuberculosis?
Yeah, I'm not sure about tuberculosis. I know they're not good for that powder is not. Is
That's
far
what
from
you.
good
I think
for
that's what. If you cut yourself, that's where you can get it from. I think that's why.
But yeah, but yeah, I mean they've almost wiped out polio. They've virtually wiped out TB. They've virtually wiped out. They have wiped out smallpox. And I went down to Wonthaggi a couple of weeks ago, just to go back. I hadn't been down there for many, many years, and they've got a museum down there now in the old railway station. And one of the exhibits is a polio brace. And I talk about the brace that I used to wear, from a back, the full body brace. This was genuinely a full body brace. It strapped your arms in, it strapped your head in, and you literally they wheeled you around, had handles on, they wheeled you around, because if you had this thing, you were, basically, you could be paralysed for it. And it's like, oh, you don't hear about polio. I mean, my uncle had polio.
One of my neighbours.
You don't hear. You don't hear it nowadays. It's like, gee, I wonder why that is. Well, because they came up with the damn vaccine for it, and everybody took it, and we had to take it.
You said smallpox, but you don't hear much of either chickenpox or even mumps these days either, as well.
No, thank God, because that's one thing. I don't know whether I was ever there, but I don't think I've ever had mumps, and I don't think.
Oh, I did. It was. Oh, I remember being violently ill and just wanted to crawl into a ball and disappear.
Yeah,
it just really knocked you around.
What age did you get it at?
Oh, I was under 10. I was in the probably late single figures.
You don't want it when you're much over 10, or especially as a guy. That's for sure.
You didn't want it.
It doesn't swell up those glands.
Yeah, I remember. Oh, it actually affected my whole body. You didn't want to eat, you didn't want to drink. I think all I did, I lived on for about a week, was milk. That's all the only thing you wouldn't eat or drink.
Sounds like my life now. Pretty much my diet.
With a dash of vodka.
We're gonna shut down in a moment. I will let you know. We haven't sort of I can let this out. It's not 100% signed, but it's going to happen. We can tell you that on February the 13th, which is not this Saturday, it's the following Saturday. In Pit Lane, the In Pit Lane YouTube channel will be live at Nyora Speedway for the return of sprint cars to Nyora Speedway, a full live coverage, multiple cameras, all the bells and whistles. That's coming up on Saturday evening and Saturday night, the 13th of February. Live speedway racing from Nyora Raceway, available no charge, free to air all around Australia, all around the world on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. So if you're not a subscriber to the In Pit Lane YouTube channel, and subscribe is a bad name, because they say to people about subscribing, they go, oh, I'm going to have to pay money. No, it costs you nothing. You go in there and you click the button that says subscribe, and also the notification bell, the little notification bell, click that. And then when we do live stuff, or when we do these shows, you'll just get a little thing on your phone saying, hey, In Pit Lane is going live. And you'll say, I don't care. But either way, you'll know about it. And that's the main thing.
They're going to let us out of our cages, are they, Brett? So
they're going. Well, this is all. Subject to COVID-19. If we wake up tomorrow morning and they say, 25 people have got the new variant, and we're back in lockdown again. So none of us are getting out and going anywhere.
So we can't go down to Nyora and quarantine for 14 days now, can we? So unfortunately, we should have left a few days ago. Damn.
I don't care. I wouldn't care how much they pay me. I'm not spending 14 days in Nyora. I'm sorry, Nyora. You're a lovely little town, but I'm not spending 14 days in Nyora.
No, looking forward to it. All jokes aside, it's going to be brilliant.
It'll be fun. It's a great little track. Now tickets are on sale. So if you're in Melbourne or in anywhere in the East Gippsland or West Gippsland area, South Gippsland, you can go to the Nyora YouTube page, their website, and also on their Facebook page, and there is a link for you to buy actual tickets. And as I said, it's the first time in 7 years that they've had sprint cars at Nyora. And well, Doc, it's it's a short track, but it's a fast track. It was really well prepared. And there's a whole bunch of support categories as well, a number of big support categories with big fields. So it's going to be a great night of racing. Keep our fingers crossed for the weather, keep our fingers crossed for the COVID-19 situation. But whatever, we will be down there at Nyora. Russell's saying we'll be back. See you at Nyora. So yes, we'll see you down there, Russell. Say hello when you're there.
Just going to back you up on that. The preparation of the track, the curation of the track was absolutely top-notch. A1 last time we were there. Also, the catering facilities. I'm sure some of the local clubs will probably jump on with some COVID-safe food and drinks that were there last time. So
that's what we have. That's what we have been promised. When I was talking to Marcus from Nyora the other day, we were talking about sort of our requirements. I said we need to be fed, and he said that will not be a problem.
There you go. Great, because
we are taken care of. There will be food. There will be drink. We're being fed and watered, and we'll have a few cameras. We'll have a few cameras down there. Probably we don't want to put too many out because
on that note, but Brett, is centre management and in pit lane going to allow me to let me loose in the pits maybe with a live camera?
We're still working on that. We've got some ideas as to ways that we might be able to get you out and about on a free camera without tying up any extra bandwidth.
Because part of the experience when we were down there last time was actually getting out in the pits and having lots of fun with some of the antics that were going along out there, and that was an experience in itself.
Once again, that will depend on the COVID situation. It will also depend on some technical stuff. It's very technically it's easy for us to do. There are just some networking issues, some technical issues we've got to work through, and once again, it's one of those things that, look, if we had unlimited cubic dollars to throw at it, we could just get the right thing. But we've got to basically jerry-rig stuff, and we've got to make things do what they're not meant to do. And we can do it, and we have done it, and we will do it again at Nyora. So we're hoping to have Doc out and about, not just in the pits, but also in the crowd as well, wandering around and talking to people. So stay tuned. It's going to be a fun night. We're going to have lots of interaction like we do on the program here.
Just you can't manufacture Wi-Fi though, can you? That's the problem.
No, the one thing is that from what we've seen so far, and from the tests that have been done that I've looked at, the actual 4G down there is surprisingly good. So we should be able to get a reasonably stable signal out. Once again, touch wood, but yes, we should be able to get a stable signal out, and we will certainly have probably 3 or 4 cameras out on that.
Well, what I'll do, just in case, I won't put the fake tan on before the full course yellow like I do each week with this dark shade I wear. So I'll no fake tan going to Nyora that week. How's that sound?
Thanks for that, Chuck. Way better than the fair, balanced and non-political commercial. There's no way we can say that we're non-political. Well, at least me anyway. But I try and suppress it. I really do.
We do it at the risk of not pulling any punches, and we tell it like it is.
And that doesn't win us. That doesn't necessarily win us fans, but it certainly makes us. It's the only way we know how to do it. But,
gets us in trouble sometimes.
Listen, thanks to everybody for watching. We'll be back next week at the same time. We'll give you more up-to-date details on that. Hopefully, I'm getting down to Phillip Island on the Saturday for the Supercarts. Not sure how much we'll be able to do in terms of coverage there. There are still some restrictions, and also in terms of just getting enough sort of cameras and people to cover it. But we would like we will certainly, hopefully, all things going well, we'll be down there and we'll get some footage that we'll be able to put up on the on the YouTube channel. And also for people in Melbourne and Adelaide, I can say now, once again, not signed, but pretty much 100% certain, in pit lane, free to air, every week on channels 31 and 44 will be coming back within the next couple of weeks. It's jumped on us really quickly. 31 have changed 31 have changed their television
Policy?
schedules and said, "Hey, we'd love to have you back, but not in March. Can you start next week?"
Can you march in April?
Yeah, can we march in February, which is going to be even hard? Which is going to be harder. So yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
geez.
so we will see
Got
you.
some juggling
we'll
to do.
see you next week. Oh man, have we got some juggling to do? We'll see you. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us. Tell your friends. Send them out invites. Get them to come along because the more people who contribute, and if you want to be a part of the panel. And we say this as long as you don't libel anybody, or you don't swear, or you don't carry on like a goose. If you've got halfway decent an internet connection, good sound, decent lighting, we'd love to. I know Doc doesn't have decent light. We've spoken to him about that already, but we're working on it. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Well, but to all of you, we'll see you next week on Full Course Yellow. And wherever you are, wherever you're watching from, have a good week. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week on Full Course Yellow. But from all of us, it's bye for now. Bye-bye.
Bye.